We're paranoid. Okay, so good morning, everybody. We have a small group, but that's okay. Not a lot of people want to talk about health and fitness, but that's okay. We want to talk about health and fitness. I invited Miss Aochi, who is one of our PE teachers, here to join us this morning. You know, this is something, health and fitness, just through my life, I've been a up and down dieter my entire life. Like, you know, from when I was a teenager through adulthood, I probably have done every single diet under the sun. I have been a sporadic exerciser, where I will have periods of my life where I work out a lot. I've run a marathon, and then I tend to get really excited about stuff, and then I stopped doing it. Like when I ran that marathon, I trained for like 8 months and was like super into it. I mean, and I ran that whole thing. Did not walk during that marathon, ran the whole thing, 5.5 hours. And then I just stopped after that. I just did not continue. And so right now I'm in a period where I am actually like exercising a lot. I exercise just about every day. You know, probably to the point where I feel like I'm almost like exercising too much. Like, is overtraining really a thing? And I worry about the downs. Like, am I going to have, am I going to go back to like, I'm not doing it and I'm just, you know, doing nothing. And so I guess I just want to talk about all that. And then I also, not just for myself, but, you know, people always say like, well, if you exercise a lot, then your kids will see that and then they'll want to make that part of their life, which I do actually believe. I believe, you know, Yvonne and I have talked a lot about the idea of modeling for your kids and then they learn from you. And I think that is really true and important. But I look at my kids, my daughter does exercise. This past year she really hasn't, but she's getting back into it. But my son, and like we have our Peloton in the same room that my son is on his Xbox, and so he's like always there just on the couch like on his Xbox being a slug, while my husband and I are like sweating and like, you know, working out like crazy. But we'll see. Maybe I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, maybe this will rub off on him. Who knows? Right now it's not.
So funny. I was just thinking if they made a video game where the kids can like, you know, run over people or whatever they do in their Call of Duty games, I think my kid would be in. But
you know, there is something like that now. And God, what's it called? I think it's called there's the Wii, but then there's also this thing called, I think it's called Supernatural, where it's like a virtual, like where there's like a headset, like where you're in a virtual reality world and like you are like totally exercising and working out, but it's a video game type.
we have
thing.
it, and he does sweat pretty good. So if you guys, I'm bringing it to work one day.
Okay. All right. So Samantha, what do you have to teach us today?
I'll just go off of what you just said. I think if someone were to come to me and say what you just said, I'm always preaching that you need to find what is sustainable. And that goes for nutrition and fitness and health. You know, everybody, we live in a culture where everything's thrown at us. Try this, try that, drink lemonade, do keto, do this, do that. And it doesn't really matter what you do, but is it sustainable? You know, you don't want to do something for 6 weeks because what's the point? We're looking for longevity. And, you know, kind of connecting to last week's Zoom about aging and living a long life. If it's not going to work in a year, in 2 years, it's probably not right for you. And there's not one exercise, one nutrition fits for all. You got to find what works for you. And if Peloton is something that you're like, I could see myself doing this for the next 5 years, then that's a great plan for you. And I am 100% on board with your kids will model what you do. I have young kids, so I have a 4 and an 8-year-old, and I exercise a lot. I train. I'm competing this weekend, so I'm maybe not like the average human out there. I lift a lot of weights, but my kids will just come out and load. They have like little kid barbells, load up their barbells and do back squats. I don't push it. I just support them, like whatever they choose to do. But they definitely say, I'm gonna go work out in the garage. And so it's just become part of who they are because they see me do it so much. So I think even if you're like, hey, we walk after dinner every day, or We actually use exercise as a penalty too in our house. I'm not sure if that works out yet, so I'll fill you in 10 years, but sometimes and it's in a funny way, it's not like, a punishment, but if they leave toys out, we'll be like, oh, you left 3 toys out. That's 10 push-ups for each one, 30 push-ups. And we kind of just do it in a fun way, but it gets them moving in the middle of the day and they don't leave their toys out. So I don't know. I was going to say something about encouraging your kids to move daily, because I noticed teaching the students, especially distant learning, they have craved yoga and meditation. I didn't expect that. Like, they actually hate that unit at school because it's like they want to get out and play. But with this whole distant learning and distant teaching, I can tell that they're stimulated a lot because they're on laptops, computers, cell phones, video games. And when I force them to do like a 30-minute yoga and then we meditate a lot, I get a lot of feedback of, can we do that more? The meditation's been great. I never thought I could just be quiet in my brain. So that's something that I try to do with my personal kids too, just to lay down. It doesn't have to be perfect. So it's not about like, zenning out and being perfect and nobody talking. It's just about kind of being in the moment and shutting off all the stimulation we get from the outside.
I get kind of a vibe that next year when we come back, it's going to switch a little bit, because I'm trying to develop some curriculum surrounding re-entry and coming back to campus after being understimulated for a year, and what that's going to feel like. And I feel like they're going to really more than ever need that 30 minutes or whatever of just like shut down. I've seen it already with kids who just are on campus in cohorts, and those cohorts are small. It's not, the hallways aren't packed and busy, and it's a lot. Like, they just are going to need a space to do that. So I think you might see a switch. I'm curious to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know with my kids, I mean, like I said, my son, he just doesn't see the point. But he's young, and I think like I don't like to compare my kids, but I do. I think that's natural. With my daughter, she didn't actually really get into athletics and working out a lot until she was in high school. And so he's still in 6th grade. So I'm like, well, there's time. Like, it maybe will come later. We have never been big parents on like doing a lot of activities, like we didn't put him in Little League and like that sort of stuff. Mostly for selfish reasons, because I just don't have time. I'm like so busy all the time just with work that I'm like, on my weekends, I don't want to have a lot of activities with my kids. I just don't. And so, I've had a lot of conversations with my daughter this year. And like I said, she's always been somebody that's worked out a lot, and she's been on teams. And so she's had to do that through school, and that's been really great for her. But this year when that all stopped, and, she was going through depression and a lot of things too. And so it was really hard for her to be physically active. But she made this comment to me once, and she was like, Mom, when you tell me to do something, it just makes me not want to do it. And so like, I'm really like, if I tell her to exercise, she's just gonna be like, no, I don't, like, I just not going to want to. And so, I try to encourage her and try to set stuff up and like give her the opportunities. I bought her like a pair of Peloton shoes so that she could do the bike, but she doesn't like it. And okay. Yeah. What do you like to do? And just trying to encourage her with that. I don't know. So do you have any words of advice as a PE teacher and like with teenagers? What works? Does anything work to get them to start moving?
I feel like that's a problem in parenting in general. Like, it could come from the neighbor and they're going to do it. But if it comes from the mom and dad, it's like, oh, I'm not doing that, I would say first try language, like let's go, instead of, hey, why don't you? Because then it's you're telling them. So when I make it part of like, we are going to the park, or let's go to the park. We went to the park the other day, and I taught elementary school first. So I have all these kid games, and we played chaos tag, and it's like everyone's it. So you're sprinting for like however long you play tag. And so they didn't even know they were exercising. So it was like, let's go play tag, or, but my kids are also younger, so I'm not dealing with a teenager yet.
Mhm.
At school, they don't like to be told what to do either. I try to make it fun, like make it a competition. Sometimes I make it between them. Sometimes I make it against me. Most kids innately want to win. So I always joke too, like, guess what? I have no trophies today. Like, we're going to see who wins. That way it's not life or death. But I think if, like you said, like finding what interests them. And I try to be really careful on that line with my own kids of not pushing. Like, I played softball in college. My daughter had zero interest until 3 months ago. And I'm trying really hard not to be crazy. Like, okay, well, if you want to play, let's play, and she's chosen a lot of individual sports that I played all team sports growing up. So I'm just trying to support what she seems interested in. And maybe it's not our ideal as a parent. And so you got to get out of what you want and what you would do and what interests you and listen to what they like. Like she loves jujitsu. I mean, I never did that in my life, but she loves it. So I'm like, all right, let's harvest that. Let's push towards that. And I think just listening is such a good skill for us as teachers and parents to hear what the kids are saying. I have kids that say, I really enjoy when we, do relay races. Okay, let's do relay races. I don't really care what we do as long as we're moving.
Mhm.
Speaking to that, like kids don't listen to what their parents say. I mean, that is literally like the majority of my job. I have parents who call me and they say, can you tell so-and-so that they really, and it's true. I tell them all the time, 2,200 kids listen to me and 3 at home don't. I'm not like, super mom. My kids don't listen to me either. And when it comes to exercise and like modeling, I mean, my struggle's been up and down forever. And you two actually are a big support for me because both of your activity comes up on my phone. And I'll be laying in bed ready to watch TV and I'm like, oh, I know, Jenny, you saw my rings yesterday close.
I know 2 days in a row. I was like, go Yvonne.
And it really is. I think it's about like, even that kind of accountability. And my kids are seeing, they're like, okay, mom's on it again. Let's see. And they're, right now, I think for them, it's like they're supportive of me because I talk about like, I want to live a long life and this has been a struggle. And before it used to be like, I just want to look cute in that dress. Now it's like, I just don't want to die in 10 years, right? Like so that for our family has been really helpful and like seeing it from the perspective of not like vanity, like how it's always been kind of like, oh, you want to look good. And now it's about like longevity and quality of life and things like that. And so that's been helpful even for my little gamer. And I love what you said about let's go. Because if I tell him to go for a walk, I'm just nagging him. But then like yesterday, I'm like, can you take mom for a walk? Let's go. And he's like, yeah, let's go. So I love that idea of just like, it's a we thing. It's not you need exercise. It's like, we all need exercise. So, because I haven't been a great model of it, but, I guess it's never too late to start.
It doesn't have to be huge. Like, I think people think of taking on this endeavor as an overhaul. Really, we're looking for 10 to 20 minutes a day. Even if you move 10 minutes a day, and I'll say the depression will be lifted. I mean, endorphins are real. I'm constantly lecturing this to my students that endorphins are real, hormones are real, and they are released when you move your body. And you can heal some of the stuff you're going through if you just move your body. And so to kind of preach that, and like you just said something that sparked something in my head that um, growing in my teenage years, I developed, even though I played 3 sports in high school and I was very athletic, I developed an eating disorder in my teenage years and probably through some of my 20s. And it was because of what I was told of why I needed to do something. Instead of like you just said, we're trying to live a long life or let's be healthy. I'm really careful of the words I choose in my house as far as I just want you to be strong. Like, I want you to be able to lift your own bag. You don't need to ask for help. I want you to be able to run down the street if something were to come up. It's kind of more about living life than fitting in a box and looking a certain way. And that's so important to me with a daughter that I encourage her. I lift a lot of weight so she sees that I'm strong and my body's going to look how it looks if I'm healthy. Who cares how it looks? I eat well, I train hard. It looks how it looks. We're all born a certain way. And I think, Yvonne, you might know this. My dad died at 53. I was 27. He was not healthy, and I love him. He was a great daddy. He coached me, but he was a big man. He was 330 pounds. He had diabetes and he chose to drink. So losing him at a young age, he never met my kids. He's out of, he's not around. It has pushed me to say, I don't want to do that to my family. I want to live a long life. And that's really where I put my focus. And it feels good to be outside. You always don't want to go, but then when you go or when you exercise, you're like, no one ever leaves the gym saying, oh, I wish I didn't go there. You always are like, God, I'm so glad I did that. You just feel better.
Absolutely. I wonder though, like with like being young, because I think vanity and like you're very egocentric when you're young. Like, I don't know that kids have the capacity to, I mean, I know they do, but in my mind, it's like, do they have the capacity to think of it from that whole like living longer, living healthier? Because I feel like I had this like click in my brain a couple of weeks ago. We were meeting with our financial planner guy, and he was like talking about retirement and like the things that we might be able to do in our retirement. And I'm like, oh my God, like I don't want to be old and fat and like can't enjoy these things when I get there, And so it was like this real like awakening almost of like, I want to like quality of life is such a huge thing. Like I work with people all the time where their quality of life is not good. And it's like, what's the point of living to 90 if you're miserable for the last 40 years, And so that's kind of been my focus lately of like, wanting to not just live to be older, because you can live to be older and not have a good quality of life, but to really be able to like enjoy grandkids, eventually, and things like that I never would have thought of when I didn't care about my grandkids when I was 18, right? Like,
No.
and now it's like a thing, and it's like, I wish there was a way I could have learned that sooner. Like Samantha, I played 3 sports in high school. So I always tease like, there's an athlete in here. I know it. Like, but just how do we, like, what kind of language do you think would be helpful to use for kids about like health and, because it's easy to tell, like if a girl like thinks they look fat, they're going to start eating better and working out, but that's not sustainable, right? Like that's, do you have any advice of like, what kind of language do you use with kids?
I don't know if it works yet. I guess I need to like follow my students for 20 years and say, did that work? Because I try, but I'm with you. I thought I was immortal too when I was young. I still do. My aunt told me I'm coming up on perimenopausal, and I was like, no, I'm not. Like, not me. She was like, yeah, call me in a few years. So I think that's just natural to think that's not going to happen to me. So I constantly joke with my students, like, I know you don't think this is going to happen. I say it in all my videos. Like, I know you don't think you need to stretch. I know you think your joints are going to last forever, but I promise you, like I always tell them, if someone could have told me how to take care of my like my joints, I'm talking what am I thinking, stabilization in my joints, I would be so much better off right now if someone could have helped me. But who knows, I probably wouldn't have listened. So I don't know the answer until I talk to those students in 20 years if it worked.
What advice do you have? You've touched a little bit on the nutrition aspect. My son is a very picky eater. Like a fruit or vegetable has never passed his lips. Like, I mean, like unless I disguise it into, and just totally trick him. But he's deeply suspicious now of food and like, what have I put in it? And I just, and I don't know how to get past. I mean, and honestly, like I go through like it's kind of like my own fitness where I'll go through periods where I'm like, okay, I'm going to really focus on this and I'm going to really try. And then there's other times I'm like, oh, whatever, just eat something. So, do you have any advice about picky eaters?
I was one, and I have one. I have one really good eater, and I have one very picky eater, and he is breakfast burritos all day. I disguising it is part of it. I make my daughter a smoothie every day, and there's so much spinach in it. She knows because she watches me, but she doesn't care. The other thing is to just know that it's not forever. I don't think I grew up a little bit on the poor side, but I didn't eat any vegetables except canned corn until I was like 20, until I met my husband, 26. And he grew up in a very traditional Asian family that you have vegetable, rice, protein. And I would sit down and be like, what's happening on this plate? And so I just learned to try everything as an adult. And now I eat 800 grams of vegetables a day. So I feel like it's okay. Like no one's going to die. We try our best. I just consistently put the food out. And we talk a lot about them going to their muscles. So I kind of like, my son wants muscles. He's only 4, so he's got tiny little arms, and I tell him this is like going to make your muscles huge. So once in a while he'll eat it, and then he's flexing for us. So I don't think it's like nothing to stress about, because humans evolve and adapt, and even if they grow up not eating something, they may end up totally eating it. Just keep trying.
Yeah, we do this kind of fun thing where we go to the farmer's market, and there's a lot of very unfamiliar, like Asian fruits. I didn't even know what they were or how to open them, or, and so we have this thing now on Sundays where we go to the farmer's market. We're supposed to pick one thing. We know that we might love it, we might hate it, and we'll ask, the person that's selling it, like, okay, what on earth is that, and what do we do with it? And hit or miss. Sometimes it's worked out and it becomes something that became more of a regular thing for us, but they like it because it's like, it's okay if you don't like it, but let's just try it, and my kids aren't little, but they eat like they are, right? Like if I could give them a PBJ and goldfish crackers, my 18-year-old would be like for days, right? Like, so just like experimenting, and it's okay to not like it, but at least
I love that idea. That's a great idea.
Too. There's so many things I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what that is. So that's been fun for us.
And it gets them involved, and they're invested in their own health. Another thing, take it or leave it. I allow my kids to spit out food in the garbage, because I grew up with a militant dad. He was in the military, and he would make me swallow, and I would be crying, and I'm traumatized from it. So my rule is try it. If you are going to like throw up and you hate it, go spit it out in the trash. Like who cares? You tried it. And then you have to try it 3 times, like just because you hated asparagus the first time, you might like it the next time. But that way they don't feel like anxiety and stress about having to eat it. Like just try, and then whatever, go spit it out, not a big deal.
That reminds me of being at a restaurant in San Francisco, and my oldest, who's 18 now, was probably 6, and my husband's like, swallow it. And it was prosciutto, is that what it's called, with cantaloupe in it? Mm-hmm. And he had tears coming down his eyes, and then he threw up on the plate at the restaurant. So from that point on, I'm like, you can spit it in a napkin.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine as an adult, someone being like, swallow it? I think it's important that we know these are small humans. Like
we're like mushroom haters in our family. No offense to anyone that loves them, but I would never force my kid to swallow a mushroom. Oh, like
So mushrooms are a thing for me that, like, Samantha, where you talked about like when you got older, because mushrooms were something I hated as a child. I don't know if I actually ever ate one, to be completely honest, but I just thought they were so gross. And up until I want to say in my 30s, and now I cook with mushrooms all the time. I love them.
Call them pizza ruiners.
But so I don't like the white button mushrooms. Those are gross. But like wild or like mushrooms, and like there come in so many like different varieties. They're so good. Yeah. And so that's like I'm just like, yeah, there's stuff that I will now eat that I never would have eaten as a child.
Yeah, our taste buds change and we change. So just keep trying.
Yeah. I mean, but there are still things now that mushrooms and avocados are my 2 things that I now will eat as an adult that I would not eat as a child. But there's still things like, I am not a fan of squash. I'm not going to eat it. It's gross. It's slimy. So gross. And I don't like onions.
Oh, see, onions are one of my kid things. Like I would have never been caught dead, and now I love onions. I mean, vegetables in general. I love vegetables. I never thought growing up.
I was the same with avocados, Jenny, and we had a big, beautiful avocado tree growing up. And my sisters and I would grab them and pick them and throw them across the field. And now that I'm buying them for, $3.50 a pop, I'm like, I'm thinking we could have made a killing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I always thought they were so gross. And now, I don't know. They're just not gross to me anymore. So...
I mean, I kind of like your thinking, Samantha, of like not demanding like perfection and doing things that actually work for you. I don't know if I shared this with you guys, but like 3 weeks ago, I think it was, somebody's like, you should try keto. And knowing I don't like eggs, I don't like meat, that's at all. So I was like literally starving. All I wanted was an orange, and then keto, they're like, don't eat oranges. It was awful. Like it was like, it was like a week and a half of like torture. It just wasn't for me. But then I'm like Googling, like, oh, I lost 80 pounds on keto. So I'm like, oh, I'm into it. But then I realized like this is the most disgusting thing I've ever done in my life. And it's not for me, and that's okay. I love food, I love vegetables, I love fruit. And to feel like I couldn't was just like horrible. So I love that you said just like has to be sustainable. It has to work for you. Amy says my younger one always wants a Jamba Juice after going on a hike. It's kind of a motivation for her. Hard to cut the habit, even though we know it's not healthy.
It's not necessarily unhealthy. I don't like to put in categories healthy, unhealthy, because it becomes very black and white. And I think that sets us up for bad habits. There's room for everything. I mean, they have those little small kid ones. That's perfect. It is fruit and vegetables. They're just adding some sweetness to it. So it's definitely not going to kill anyone to have that every day. I think the benefit of the fruit in it outweighs the negative of, oh, well, maybe this has some sorbet in it or whatnot. And if that works to get them moving for now, I don't see anything wrong with it. And to Yvonne, you know how I feel about this because we've talked about this when we were working together this summer or last summer. It's so important to do what works for you, because otherwise you're pushing against the grain. If everyone's like, you got to work out at 6 a.m., it's the best time to work out. You can, and you are not a morning person, that is not going to work for you. The sustainability of that is zero. And just like the whole example of keto, again, do what works for you. Mr. Simos likes to eat that way. It works for him. It doesn't really matter what you choose as long as one, you can stick to it, and two, it's in a healthy caloric range for what you're trying to do in your life. Period. Like you could eat a large pizza every day. If it fits in your calorie needs, great. Probably not going to be the healthiest person on earth, but you definitely would be able to change your body. So try not to get stuck in the black, white, like yes, no, good, bad. And when we use that language in our households, it's part of that diet culture, right? Good, bad. That means that we're telling ourselves we can never have this category, but really we can have everything as long as it fits in our day. Yeah. And it's important that we don't set our kids up with diet culture. I've done a lot of research this year. It is pretty insane what the outside is pushing on us and what social media is pushing on our youth. And that we have to keep our eyes open for good, bad, yes, no, healthy, unhealthy, and know that everything can fit within a moderation.
Yeah. No, I think that's, going back to like, I was working with Miss Aochi in the summer to help lose weight, and I think I lost like 18 pounds or something. Like it was like really like a good experience. And I kind of fell off the wagon and trying things that maybe were faster. And I've kind of come back to like, what she said to me was like, it has to work for me. It has to, and those like quick things didn't work. And so I'm back to where I was when we were working together. But, that example that I set, my son was very much overweight. He was depressed. He is my middle son. Since COVID, we got a Peloton. When I started working with Samantha, he kind of picked up some healthier habits. He's lost 28 pounds. He rides the bike every day. He's a new kid. And it's like, that for me has been a huge motivation. And so they kind of switched roles. Now my youngest one is like, so now he's watching me again. So I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity to like show them that if it's like, I'm one of those people, like if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I have a ways to go, but just to have that idea and that thought of like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be sustainable. It has to work for me. There's no food categories that are totally out of the question in moderation. I think that for me is the big thing. Because again, like I just wanted an orange, and the more I knew I couldn't have an orange, the more I wanted that orange.
Which is crazy, right? Because oranges have a high amount of vitamin C.
Yeah,
and diet's telling you can't eat healthy. Nobody has died from eating too much fruit and vegetables. Nobody has gained weight from eating too much fruit and vegetables. So if there's somebody or a diet telling you that, you might want to kind of like reevaluate that whole idea.
A couple of years ago, I did Whole30 for the month of January, and I did the entire month. I did the whole thing, and actually, it was really hard. It got much easier at the end of the month because I got used to it. But two things that I got from that experience. First off, I used to have like horrible bursitis, like where I would like lie on my side and like it was just so painful, and it was getting so painful, like I couldn't find a comfortable way to sleep. And because I used to drink Coke Zeros, like, oh my God, I probably drank 4 a day. I mean, I drank a lot of them. And so under Whole30, you can't do that. And that bursitis went away. And I didn't necessarily make the connection until, I mean, I definitely like liked not drinking them anymore. So I cut that out. And then was on this WASC visit at this other school, and I was in a hotel and I had slept really bad. And so the next day I was like super tired, and they had Diet Cokes. And so I was just drinking Diet Cokes since I needed the caffeine because I was so tired. And that bursitis came back with a vengeance. And I was like, I can't have sodas. And so I don't drink them now, and I don't have that problem anymore. And so that was really great. But the second thing that I really am so glad that I did that Whole30 month was I rediscovered fruit. And like so many years of like low carb diets and that like whole like mentality of like you can't have carbs and you can't have fruit. I'm like I like fruit. It's really good. And so I rediscovered that, and it's just been so nice. Like why would I ever stop eating fruit? That's insane.
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't make
funny
sense in my mind.
that we are pushed to focus more on aesthetics and body weight than nutrients, right? Like the nutrients in fruit and vegetables. And this is kind of the language I use with my own daughter when she asks, can I have a blank? I just say, it's up to you. Like, what's in it? What's the nutrient value going to give you? Is it 0 nutrients? And so we kind of openly, and this might be helpful for some parents, we openly talk about what each food is on our plate. Like we'll just have a conversation. Like, what are you eating? Oh, okay, it's chicken breast with cheese on it, for example. What is that? And so we say, okay, the chicken is protein, the cheese is protein, and some fat. It's good fat. We never label it good or bad. We're just openly talking about what it is. And if you need help, you can easily Google protein, carb, and fat and what they are, and to not demonize a food group. Because the only reason the keto zealots are going to kill me, but the only reason you lose weight on keto is because you cut out a food group. If I said, hey, everybody cut out protein, you'd probably lose weight too, because it's calories. You're just cutting out calories. Now, again, if you feel good eating that way, eat that way. No problem. Like, eat what feels good, but just know that it works because you're cutting out a food group. And just to be aware of what things are and to have the balance of a Coke Zero has 0 nutrients, and you could have a water with 0 nutrients, but what else is in it, and just having a conversation about it.
I've done Whole30 keto, I've done, and all of them tell you that you can't eat beans. Well, I'm Mexican, we eat beans. Like we eat beans every night. And so I was feeling like it was awful. Like, I'm like, I don't see why a 1/4 cup of pinto beans with my chicken at night is like a bad thing. And I just couldn't get through that. And so now like there are nutrients in beans. I don't know what they are. I think it's protein and I don't know what else, but
I'm going to blow your mind right now with beans. Okay. So it's so good. It's this huge research project I read this year. This woman who was in the Navy, she became a doctor and a professor now, and she teaches this. Beans are one of the only complete proteins. So you have proteins, some are complete, some are incomplete. You can combine them to make complete. Long story short, it helps your muscles, but you have to have complete proteins to break down the branched chain amino acids. Try not to be too sciencey, but beans are a complete protein, and it's one of the only ways that we can clear our digestive system of toxins correctly. And so this woman went on, her daughter got really sick, and the doctors were saying, well, there's nothing we can do. So she took it upon herself to figure it out. And what happened was she got poisoned from like this carpet cleaner, and she needed to get the toxins out of she was a baby, her daughter's system. And she used beans to remove the toxins from her system. Now her daughter's 100%. She actually had her own kids, but it's this crazy story. And so she talks about, it's called the Bean Protocol. If anyone wants to look it up, it's very interesting. it's eye-opening because not there's very few complete proteins as served. You have to combine them, but beans are complete and they do so much good for us. And people often think beans make you gassy. It's not that, it's that they're clearing your system of toxins, and that's what the gas is. If you eat beans every day, you will stop being gassy because your body will be cleansed, for lack of a better word.
I love it. That makes me so happy. No idea.
That's actually great to know, because beans are my very picky eater son. He will eat beans. So
Yeah, bean and cheese burritos for life over here.
What about rices? Like, I know a lot of people are like, that's a really heavy part of the diet. Is there a place for that? And how does that look?
Well, I'm married to a Japanese and Chinese man, so we don't go a day without rice. I didn't grow up that way, but that's how we are now. And it's fine. Again, you can have anything. It just has to be a choice. I'll say two things. You can have anything. It needs to fit in your daily caloric needs for whatever your goal is. And just to know it's a choice. I'm constantly telling my clients, like, it's a choice and you have to be okay with your choice. So you can't choose to eat a cookie and then complain and whine and be depressed and now your life is over. Choose to eat the cookie and be okay with that choice. And that is such a mental work and it takes time, but I would encourage everyone to work on that mental language. But yeah, rice is actually one of the better lower carbohydrates. Just remember your brain and your muscles work off of carbohydrates, glucose. Energy is from that.
Okay.
Now, you can switch your body to become a little bit more fat dependent. That doesn't mean it's sucking the fat from your body for energy. It's using the fat calories you ate as energy. But you will feel it in your brain. I'm sure you guys can think back to when you tried no carbs and you were a little like, ugh.
My husband's like, you need to stop. I've never seen you in such a bad mood, like ever.
Yeah, angry all the time.
yeah. I wanna also, the parents that are in here, if you guys have a question, please, you can come off mute or you can put a question in the chat, whatever you want to do. I just want to remind you.
Yeah, feel free to ask anything.
So I know Yvonne, I've talked to her about this. I started a couple of months ago doing intermittent fasting. And so I was wondering what you thought about that. For me, I really like it. I mean, because I don't like to count calories. I don't like to food log. I've done it before and it can like work for like a while and like, but at this point in my life, I know what my patterns are. And one thing that I have a tendency to do is snack at night. And so this is one thing I like about the intermittent fasting, because it's kind of like a hard rule, like, no, but it's after 7 p.m. I'm done eating and I'm like just done. And so that just has worked for me, because it takes that like, oh, I guess I can go have a cookie now. And I just don't, but if it's like 5 o'clock, I'll have a cookie. So
My first answer is the same answer as always, whatever works for you. The science behind intermittent fasting is varied. It does not have a huge effect on weight loss, except for the fact that you are narrowing your window. But you could easily hit your calories in that window. Well, I'll say. Uh, I have
yeah.
no lack of appetite over here. But if it works for you, but there is some science behind like the regeneration of cells. It's hit or miss depending on what research you read. I really think it's what works for you. I intermittent fast because I'm a night eater. And so finally, like 2 years ago, I was like, if I'm going to eat at night, why am I fighting against that battle? That's who I am. I kind of shut down after my kids go to bed at 8, and then I get a moment with my husband. And so I started to fast through the morning so that I could have a longer window at night. And it's not like I count my calories, so it doesn't really matter that much, but it gave me, I'm not hungry in the morning. So why force a breakfast when I'm genuinely not hungry? So then I start my day around 1 o'clock. That gives me extra calories to go into the night because that works for me. I was fighting against who I naturally was. And finally I accepted, like, I just want to eat at night. So let me make it work. So I save 300 to 400 calories of my day for nighttime. And now, cool, I hit my calorie target and there's no stress around it. I'll answer this question while I'm on here too, on the topic. It doesn't matter when you eat. 24 hours is 24 hours. I mean, professional athletes wake up in the middle of the night to hit their calorie needs, because to eat 5,000 calories day after day is pretty hard if you're like an NFL player or whatnot. So 24 hours is 24 hours. It does not matter when you eat that. Now, you may not feel good if you're super heavy at night, or if I eat sugar, I don't sleep at all. I'm pretty sensitive to everything anyways, but just don't get caught on the idea of I have to stop at this time so that I lose weight. It doesn't really work that way. Calories in versus calories out, period.
I started that this week, Ginny, and what I've loved about it is that I'm not a morning eater anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm a night eater. But I noticed, like, because I'm eating for 8 hours right now, and I'm like, gosh, that's cut out so many calories. I'm a little bit below my calorie goal because I'm not sitting there watching TV eating popcorn. Like, I'm done eating. It's like the window's closed, and the kids are kind of making a joke. They're like, Mom's window's closing, you know. And that's really been working. Like, I mean, again, it's only been a week, but I don't feel deprived. And I love that feeling of like, I've never thought of food as being something where there's like delayed gratification. It's like, if I want it, I eat it. And it's like, it feels so much better to be actually hungry, to have planned what I'm going to eat, you know, not to force myself to eat a meal. I don't like eggs, so I don't eat breakfast. Like, breakfast foods are kind of gross for me. And so I love it because it's like, there's nothing I'm saying no to. It's just giving me less time to like overdo it, I guess you can say. And I'm liking it so far. So I'll keep you posted, Ginny, how that works.
Yeah, let me know.
About
Okay, we've got a question. How about gluten-free? Has anyone tried that before? I haven't. Very hard for us to do.
I would like to ask, well, why do you want to be gluten-free? I'm wondering if did you hear about it and it's the new fad? So like, let's all go gluten-free, because I think gluten-free started with people who actually have like celiac disease or,
Like some sensitivity.
okay, but I'll say this too, and I'm hoping more parents watch this. This would be so good. When you're doing your research, you need to read peer-reviewed articles. That's real science research. Statements on Google are not science. So there's good and bad with the internet, right? Like, we get a ton of information, but then anyone can put anything out there. So gluten is just part of a process in our carbohydrate. It just depends how it's broken down, right? If you're having stomach issues or you notice that you're inflamed, I'm pretty sensitive to gluten. Like, if I ate a regular pizza, I would wake up and my hands would be like swollen, my eyes would be swollen. I inflame a lot. And inflammation is part of our problem in this country. That inflammation is disease. Anything you have that's a disease is caused by inflammation to some extent. So if you're thinking like, oh, okay, I just want to control like how my stomach feels and the inflammation in my body, then perhaps you do cut down on some gluten. There's plenty of options that are gluten-free that are carbohydrates, oatmeal, right? Sourdough. My mother-in-law makes sourdough bread every week and gives me a fresh bread. I'm very lucky, but there's no gluten in it, so it doesn't affect my stomach. So it's not like you have to cut out carbs. But I also say this, Amy, if it's hard for you to do and it's not necessary, like nobody has any underlying health conditions, you don't have to cut out gluten. It's not a necessity to be healthy. I don't think the research is there for us to say, oh, that's going to kill us.
So it's not inherently bad unless you have a condition that's impacted by it.
Yeah, it's really like those digestive systems and colon problems that people do have to stay away, or arthritis and joint disease. So I have joint disease, just is what it is, rheumatoid arthritis. So that's why it affects my joints. It doesn't affect my stomach as much. Hopefully that was helpful. Any other questions?
Because we'll hog all the question time.
I know. I guess on the note of gluten-free, I can ask you too, like, what's confusing? Is there anything that you're just confused on? Like, I'm hearing this and then I hear this.
Red meat.
That's a tricky one because it's hard because we have somewhat of a problem with red meat in our country as far as like where it's from and what it's fed and if it's actually red meat. if you can eat grass fed, you're better off, because the big problem is what they're putting in what they're feeding the red meat animals and then feeding to us.
Okay.
So I don't buy a ton of organic just for cost reasons, and it's not necessary to live healthy, but I do buy grass fed red meat. And that's just a personal choice. I just feel better about it. I eat red meat once a week because it is good for iron and protein. But I just try not to overdo it because it is high in fat. So you have to kind of weigh it. Do you have cholesterol problems? Do you have high blood pressure problems? Then you might want to be a little more careful with that. But it's not a necessity to live healthy, but you're not going to die if you eat it. So it's, again, that whole moderation thing.
No, that's good. My husband's plant-based right now. Everything's plant-based. I love red meat. I'm anemic. I love my red meat a couple times a week. I get grass-fed ground beef. I don't know if ground beef is, but I love it. And so I just, you hear like, oh my gosh, don't eat that, or it's bad for you. I have low blood pressure, low cholesterol.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a fan of red meat too. I always have it. The problem I have at my house is my daughter tends to watch these documentaries on Netflix. And so she's watched them about the beef industry, and she's watched them about overfishing. And so now she's like, I won't eat beef and I won't eat fish. And I'm like, oh,
yeah. It's tough because there is a problem, but we also are trying to live somewhat normal and in a healthy world and be healthy and be responsible. I think that's cool that our youth wants to be responsible as far as what we do for our planet and our animals. But I also believe in the circle of life. So it's this constant, I don't know how to help you there. And it is hard because there are some documentaries on Netflix that perhaps there's good stuff we can take from, but they're not all 100% accurate and true. So it's important that we're not like, it said this, so that's what we're doing,
Yeah, it's a difficult conversation to have too. Almost 18-year-old. She believes what she believes.
Yeah.
I just let it roll off. Like, okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's what
we'll have more chicken. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. If my 18-year-old could eat a McChicken sandwich every day of his life, he would.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
I had another question. I can't remember. Did I write it down?
I'm trying to think.
Oh, I was going to ask what holds you back? Like when you get stuck, you guys seem like you're on it right now. So think back to like when you get stuck, what holds you back from starting again, getting out there?
So for me, it always has been getting really busy and just then not finding time to go to the gym, or like I would be tired and it was so easy to talk myself out of the gym, like, oh, I don't want to drive over there. Like, I don't want to take that time. I'm just so tired. And honestly, one thing I wanted to say, like, in a weird way, this past year has been so hard and it's been terrible for so many reasons. But in a way, like selfishly, I'm like almost thankful for the pandemic because it forced some changes. Like, the gym closed. And I remember like I think it was last March, like, and I know Yvonne had gotten the Peloton, and I remember texting her, like, do you like it? Like, do you really like, because I'm thinking about getting it. And I full on like told my husband, I'm like, I think we should get a Peloton. And he was like, no, that's dumb. And I was like, no, we're going to do that. And he actually loves it just as much as I do. So I always like hold that over him. Like, that was my idea. Like, you didn't want it and I did. So, but just having it in our house and not having to drive to the gym has been so huge. And so it's actually something that I'm hopeful that being able to work from home a lot of the week has been very helpful for keeping up a routine, but I'm hopeful that just having it in the house and that now we've got something that I don't have to go to the gym for. Because one thing I always hated, like, because there's been times in my life where we didn't belong to a gym, to save money or whatever. And I'd be like, because I can just go out and run. But I'm not a fan of running. And I'm starting to actually do it a little bit more now, but I have a kind of a love-hate thing with it. Like, when I do it, I feel like so accomplished and like so like proud of myself. And I love that feeling, but there's some days that I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And so that's what I've actually like, I found that I like the spinning and I like the bike and it works for me. But I think really it's having it in my house. Like we've like made this little like home gym area of our house, and I really like that. And so I'm hopeful that as things get busier that I will be able to keep it up because it is at home and I don't have to go someplace.
When school starts, try this. Give yourself the 5-minute rule. So on days you don't want to, you say you only have to get on the bike and spin for 5 minutes, period. If you are at 5-minute mark and you're like, I am over this, get off. 9 out of 10 times you will not get off because you're going to feel good that the juices are flowing, the endorphin.
I'm already clipped in. I might as well keep going.
Yeah. And then you hit your 20, 30 minutes. Maybe it's a shorter day. That's fine. I always am pushing people to like, just start. And if you want to quit, quit. It's not the end of the world. You tried, but most of the time you're going to continue.
But to add to Ginny, like, I think that's what it is. Like in the summertime, I was like a rock star. And then I started getting into work and things got really busy really fast. And I wasn't prioritizing myself. It was just like I was taking meetings into the evening. So my dinners were very like, throw something together that probably wasn't great. And so I think the challenge is going back into like regular world again is that it's like, how do we set aside time to prioritize that? Because the healthier I am, the more energy I'm going to have throughout the day. So really like prioritizing that, like my food, my nutrition, my exercise, like these are things I have to do to be able to handle this busy day, which is easy to say right now while things are a little settled, but come, August, September.
One thing that I've started doing as stuff has gotten busy, like, we started when we first got on today, we're talking about how like the past month, like it's just gotten kind of crazy. Like, like it definitely feels like more chaotic and busy right now. And I do it usually on Sunday evenings. I will look at my calendar for the week and I put in my workout time on my calendar because I live and die by my Google Calendar. If it's not on my Google Calendar, I'm not doing it. And so I actually calendar in, okay, this is when I'm going to have that hour and a half that I need to work out like that. And this is when I'm going to do it. And that works. And I tend to stick to it.
I think scheduling it for most people is a great idea. I'm always asked, like, how do you train every day? Most of the time I want to, but I'm still a human and I'm exhausted and whatnot. But all I do is shut my brain off and go to where I need to go. It used to be the gym. Now it's my garage. I just put my shoes on and go. Like I just have to shut my brain off and get there. I just pull into the parking lot or I go to the garage and I'm like, well, I'm here. So I guess I'm doing it, So I think just that beginning, getting started is so important. And to know that this goes for nutrition and fitness. It doesn't have to be 100%. Like 80% is a great marker. If you did, my daughter, if you did 80% if you did 80%, go to class out of the year. So there's 365 days. That means you'd hit 292 days. That's 80%. You're only missing 73 days. That seems like a lot or a little, depending on who you are. So again, that whole idea of being perfect, I have to do all or nothing. I need to either eat no sugar or I have to eat all the sugar. To really train ourselves to get out of that mindset, and that something is better than nothing. 2 years ago for my course 3, we put on the back of our shirts more than nothing, and Mr. Simos totally made fun of me. I'm like, but here where I'm coming from, I had those students who wanted to do nothing. So then I'd say, hey, grab some dumbbells and do 100 bicep curls. Then they would, and then they would sit. And I'm like, hey, you did more than nothing. And that's the idea, that it doesn't have to be this grand adventure. If you did 10 squats, but you were going to do 0, you just killed it and did more than nothing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that actually kind of leads into our topic for next week is letting go of expectations. And so I think that that's kind of a great lead into what we're going to talk next week about. Just we have these expectations for ourselves or for our kids, and like, how do we let that go? Before we go, we had one question go in the chat about still eating fish in Japan after dumps wastewater from the nuclear plant. Well, that sounds not good to eat nuclear fish.
I don't know that answer yet. I would say wait till, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Wait till it comes, until someone tells us what to do. I don't know that answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think with anything, I think it's just a good rule of thumb for food. The more you can eat local, the better. So.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, ladies. You both inspire me. Like, look at my watch right now. There's nothing on it, but there will be by the end of the day.
There will be.
I don't know if my little circles will close like 5 times like you guys's does.
So just give you like, so you don't like freak out and something's wrong with me. I am taking a planned day off. Today is a planned day of rest. I
would have sent a welfare check to your house.
I know. So my circles are not going to move today. And it's because I've gotten such a habit of like, I honestly don't take a lot of days off. So I close my rings every single day, no matter what. And then at the end of the month, when I get the perfect month from closing my rings every day, that gives me a little thrill. I have discovered about myself in the past year that I am really like the badges on Peloton, my closing my rings. It's like a little kid with like getting like the gold star stickers. I very much respond to that. So
I love the rewards on the watch. I don't know. Me too. I'm like, oh, I didn't make it. My husband's like, you're training like crazy. I'm like, I know, but that one day. I'll say before we go too, just in case there's another population, we often speak to like, how do we get started? This past year, I learned how to slow down because I'm born with a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy. It works well for my job. I had to learn to take rest days because I was just killing my body, and I'll be 40 this year, and the joints just cannot take that pounding. So my coach worked with me to close it down, and I take 2 days off. It doesn't mean I'm inactive. It means I'm not training. And so I learned to take 10 minutes a day for myself. I don't always make it. I'm a mom too, teaching, but I'm trying, whether it's a shower with the door locked or a meditation with my students. I'm just trying to have that moment of me time and powering down, because you can also have the negative effect of going too much and too high. And Yvonne, please don't be jealous this weekend because I'm competing. So it's five crazy workouts in 3 days, and then
I love it. I'm like, oh my god!
You'll be like, what is she doing? So that's what I'm doing. So
I love it.
Sunday I might be dead. There may be like 1,000 steps.
Well, good luck to you this weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing it and joining us. I always love it when Yvonne and I have company to talk about stuff. It's nice.
Thanks for inviting me. It was really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. Everybody have a good rest of your day, good end of your week, and happy Mother's Day out there to everybody.
Happy Mother's Day. So, thank you.
All right. Bye.